Hi, you're listening to Behind the Bib podcast with Lisa Watkins. Real talk for every runner. Hey y'all, welcome back to Behind the Bib, the podcast for every runner. I am your host, Lisa Watkins. Today we're talking about some races from this past weekend. I did two that I would like to tell you about. That's the Arbor Day 5K that was out here at Huntsville Botanical Gardens, and a little race in North Georgia called the Teardrop Half Marathon. So, without further ado, let's get started. All right, first up is the Arbor Day 5K. This race was out at Huntsville Botanical Gardens. I think it does the similar route as the Galaxy of Lights, which here, funny story, I've registered for the Galaxy of Lights for the last 5 years. And I have yet to do that race. This year, I'm going to register for it, and I am going to actually go do the race. I just consider it my yearly contribution, to the Botanical Gardens. I think a yearly membership is actually cheaper. All of that is to say that the Arbor Day 5K runs through Huntsville Botanical Gardens. It was on this past Saturday, and it was actually really great. I will say that the weather started off pretty cool. It was it had that little misty kind of feel. It was about 50-something degrees, and it was actually perfect. I absolutely loved it. The course starts right there at the pavilion at Huntsville Botanical Gardens, and you kind of go down past the main the main building there at the Botanical Gardens, and you kind of loop around the garden. Now, I will say I was kind of expecting to go through the garden a little bit more, but you actually don't do that. You don't go through the garden paths. You do for a little bit, on the outside of the garden. It takes you down there where the herb garden is, and then the daylily garden, and then you circle back around the back side of the Botanical Gardens. And then you go down over where the Space and Rocket Center has the Aviation Challenge. It's kind of cool to run by the jets that they have out there. And so you run by the Aviation Challenge. You run kind of out to the path on the road. And then if you know the old Galaxy of Lights path where you kind of had to turn in from Bob Wallace before they opened the Galaxy of Lights to the bigger route that it currently is, you go out there, and then you finish on the really big hill that runs from the Space and Rocket Center area to Huntsville Botanical Gardens. So you kind of finish on a hill, which is, it's fine. There was no big deal about that. It does I will say for me, it does kind of break your momentum a little bit, because the finish line is really, it's 100 yards, maybe. I don't know if it's even 100 yards past the apex of the hill. So you really do, finish on a hill. So, but all in all, the vibe was great. We showed up. It was kind of a raining morning. People were a little sleepy. But it was they had Metropolitan DJ out there. They had, their finish line set up, the starting line set up. It was well organized. Packet pickup was at Fleet Feet. It was pretty much just a standard, good little 5K here in Huntsville. And my daughter actually ran it with me, and she said, I knew I was going to get roped into doing another 5K when I came home. And she did. Because what's more fun than running with people that you love? I don't know. But we had a good time running the Arbor Day 5K, and I would 100% do it again. I'll sign up for it again next year. I will say it did not have, the race did not have medals. It wasn't a medal race, and so when I posted the pictures of the race, I was like, here's my banana medal, because that's what I got, was a banana medal. But they had some great post-race food, so they didn't just have, bananas and water, right? They had all kinds of muffins and great carb stuff and big bottles of water for folks to take, and as well as the coolers and stuff out there too. So they had some really good post-race recovery stuff. And I took a a blueberry muffin to go, because I have kind of gotten in this, I don't know, weird funk after the races where I can't eat. And that's never really happened to me before, where I'm just like, yeah, I feel so crummy and yucky. And I can't eat. And I don't know what the deal is with that, but hoping to get that. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I've never experienced that before. And I know one of my run buddies had talked about that. Like, she doesn't really feel like she can eat that well after races. And I'm finally understanding what she's talking about, because I love those blueberry muffins. And this might sound really stupid, but like the Costco blueberry muffins that have that crumble on the top of it, that's like my absolute favorite. And they had muffins like that. And I was like, oh, sweet, blueberry muffins. But I totally did not go after it. Like, I took one, but I didn't eat it right away. And, and I ended up not getting to eat it at all, because my daughter was holding it. Like, we had a bunch of stuff to carry in when we got home. And so I gave her the muffin to carry in, because I was going to eat it in a little bit. And we have three dogs. So I have two and my daughter has one. And they run out to greet us and everything. And she bent down to greet them. And then usually when we arrive home, we give our dogs like a little treat. And it's been our tradition. Like, when we come home, they come up, they greet us, they sit, and they get their little treat. Well, they sat, and Bella had my muffin in her hand, and they were like, oh, yummy treat. And there went the muffin. So bye-bye, blueberry muffin. I guess I didn't need it anyway. So the puppies got to enjoy my Arbor Day 5K blueberry muffin. But another great race put on. It benefited the Huntsville Botanical Gardens. I really do hope to be able to do the Galaxy of Lights this year. Y'all hold me to it, because I do not have a good track record with that one. The Arbor Day race was very fun, and it was simple, great, well organized, great aid, great vibe at the beginning. I would 100% do it again. Now let's talk about a race that I am not going to do again. And that, my friends, is the Teardrop Half Marathon. Man, I've been looking forward to this race for so long. I think I signed up for it like, it might have been 2 or 3 months ago. It's like one of the few net downhill races in the Southeast. We really don't have a lot of those. We have a lot of like rolling hill races, but like, you've heard of the Jack and Jill Marathon, and what is it, the Peak to Valley or the Peak to Coast Marathon. So there's a few marathons and half marathons around the United States that are like net downhill. That means the elevation gain that you gain throughout the race is actually less. You start at the top and you run downhill. And I had been looking forward to this race for so long. I was so excited about it. Something like 84% of people PR in the race. I don't know how they actually track that, because when I registered for it, it didn't like take my PR time and then tell me, if I PR'd. So I guess maybe it's just based on self-reporting. I don't know. Anyway, I was really looking forward to this race. We traveled for it. Run buddies went with me, and actually ended up picking up a run buddy while we were there. So excited for this race. It's near my hometown in North Georgia. I'm from a little town called Ellijay, Georgia, and it's in the town called Chatsworth, and you basically have to drive through Chatsworth to get to Ellijay. All of that is to say, I was really, really excited for this race. Okay, so let's talk about the pros of the race first, because I don't want to just crap all over it from the very beginning. There are some good things, and I want to be sure that I talk about the good things and not just about the things that frustrated me very, very, very much about this race. So, good things. Had a super cool shirt. It had, I don't have the shirt with me, but maybe I can just like post a picture of it on the Instagram carousel when I broadcast the episode or the show notes or the episode on Instagram. I kind of put it out there and say, hey, the episode's ready, blah, blah, blah. So I'll post a picture of the shirt. It's kind of cool shirt. Not going to tell you that yet because I'm focusing on the positive. So cool shirt, shows the elevation gain. It was a neat design. All right. The medal is actually pretty cool. It's it turns out it's one of my favorite medals. So actually puts the year on it. Good job. This was put on by, I think, We Life is the race company. And so years on it. The medal it has 3 mountains in the background, which is not the exact like mountains that we ran down, but I get it. They probably just needed to choose mountains. And so it has 3 mountains in the background. And then it says 2025 teardrop. And inside the O of the word drop is like a little teardrop. And it says Fort Mountain, and then it actually has the beginning elevation, which is 2,851, 2,851 feet. And then the word half is like split in half by the elevation drop, which is kind of neat, right? And then it finishes at 741 feet. And then it says Chatsworth on the bottom of it. So I will show the medal to you real quick. All right, so if you're watching on like the YouTube things, there is the medal. It's the Teardrop Half Marathon. And you can kind of see how the word half has the elevation that you run down. And I thought, oh, that's a super cool design. And that's one of the reasons I thought, wow, this race is going to be so great. And I'm going to enjoy this so much. Okay. Third major pro, absolutely gorgeous course. I might be partial because I'm from the North Georgia mountains, and I am a mountain girl. I am not a beach girl. I love the mountains. That's where I go to reconnect and find my home and all of those things. And so the race course was absolutely beautiful. It starts at the top of Fort Mountain, which is where Fort Mountain is in Chatsworth, which is a ridge of mountains that's in between Chatsworth and Ellijay. And you start at the top of the mountain and you run 2.5 miles down the mountain towards Fort Mountain State Park. You turn around, run back up the mountain for 2.5 miles for 5 miles at the beginning. Now, they actually did have some cute signs out there as you were doing the uphills at the first of the race, because they say, hey, we said that it was a net downhill, not that it was all downhill. And I thought, that's pretty witty, right? So don't be fooled. There are some hills that you have to run up. It's definitely not, let me repeat that, it is definitely not all downhill. There's 5 miles of rolling hills, and some of those rolling hills are a little bit more than rolling. It's pretty big dang hills. And but then you run the remaining 7 miles down the mountain into the city of Chatsworth, and you finish in City Park there in Chatsworth, Georgia. So, absolutely beautiful course. We started at 7:30 in the morning. They have to bus people to the top of Fort Mountain. So you catch a bus down in the park, and then you ride the bus to the top of the mountain, and then you run your half marathon down the mountain. This race did have 3 races with it. It had the half marathon, it had the 10K, and then it had the 5K. Each of those races had a different starting point at the top of the mountain. And but you had to ride the bus from the Chatsworth side to the top of the mountain in order to run down. Now, my daughter, who is an absolute saint, got up at the butt crack of dawn and drove us to the top of the mountain. But let me tell you, when we got up and we're leaving, and the sky is just starting to gray, and you have the very first beginnings of dawn crack up over the mountains, and then Venus was still in the sky shining super bright, and we're starting the drive up the backside of the mountain, and the fields have like deer and the mist laying across the field, and wild turkeys. Some people even talked about seeing wild pigs, or wild hogs is what you call them up in North Georgia. It was just stunningly beautiful. And then we get to the top of the mountain, and I guess, what did we say? It's 2,851 feet. And you're looking out across the valley, and you just see these lakes of fog that had settled in the valleys. And it was just spectacularly beautiful. I don't want to say I would recommend this race just for that. But if you listen to the rest of the podcast and you're like, it's still worth it, then go do it. Okay, because it absolutely is. It's probably in my top 3 of most beautiful race courses, Savannah being up there among them. I think Savannah was probably my number 1 top race for the most beautiful course. So I mentioned that they had some funny signs along the way, like, hey, we didn't tell you it was all downhill. And they put that at like the steepest part of the hill. I get it. And then I think probably the biggest pro of all of it was absolutely fantastic race photographer. He brings he rides this little red moped, and he just brings so much energy. And he actually looks at the background for the still photography as you're waiting for the race to start. So he's going around doing still photography. He brings second and third shooters sometimes. And he's getting girls to get together and do the cute little jumps. And then he actually put me and my run buddies in front of the rising sun, in front of the sunrise. Oh my gosh. Just absolutely, it's so good. Race photographer was so good. Absolutely. He was wonderful. I'm not sure if when it comes to comparing him to Greg Gilmas, I don't know. They both have great energy. I don't know. I didn't think there would be one out there equal to Greg, but this guy was really, really good. All right. Now let's dive into the other part. We talked about the pros first. Now let's talk about the stuff that I was like, man, why you gotta be that way? Because there were some things about this race that I was definitely like, crap, that kind of sucked, So let me see. Where should I start? So I did talk about the shirts a little bit, in that the shirts have a cool design on them, right? It was a neat design. It matched I don't want to say it matched, but it coordinated, with that metal, right? So the shirt and the metal together, you can tell good marketing, good design, stuff like that. But we get there, and the race, check-in was just fine. That went well. And then we went to pick up our shirts. And let me tell you, I have seen race shirts fit small before, and you're like, I really need to size up. And then at the end of the race, they'll let you bring your shirt back and trade it in for a larger size or something like that. Well, this shirt, you had to size up. No kidding. 2 full sizes. They had gender specific sizes. This time they had male shirts and female shirts, and you had to size up 2 full sizes. No joke. Because you were not going to get into your regular size. Like my run buddy, normally a medium, had to go up 2 sizes. Me, normally a large, had to go up 2 sizes in the female shirt. Not joking one bit. And then, but if you got the men's shirts, which they were letting you do, you got the men's shirts. But here's the thing. They let all of the women, or I don't want to say all of the women, but the women that wanted to, in the order of however they were doing it, they let the women choose a men's shirt. If the women's shirt was too small, and they weren't going to be able to wear it. But what this did was that there were some men that straight up didn't get any shirts or they didn't get a shirt that would fit them, because some of the women had taken some of the men's shirts because the women's shirts were not correctly sized. So that was a whole big deal. And I'm like, well, I've had plenty of races say, we had trouble with our shirt vendor, just trade it in after the race. It'll be fine. We really didn't think much of it. It's like, okay, it's kind of small. We'll just figure it out. And we weren't going to knock the race for that. Okay. So we get the shirts, and then the next morning we start the race, and I have made no, it is no secret that I am a back of the pack runner. I'm a proud back of the pack runner. I love my run intervals, and I still love to run. And by golly, I'm still a runner, and every one of them back there with me is still a runner too. So here's the thing. We started down the course, so we do the 5 miles on the top of the mountain. And then I'm like, oh yeah, now we're fixing to rock and roll for 7 miles down this mountain. Here's the thing. I don't know how many half marathons you've ran, but I've run one or two. I've run more than one or two, in fact. I have yet to have a half marathon that didn't at least have volunteers handing out water and Gatorade or some kind of electrolyte, and then have like goos or what are the, is it Honey Stinger, the waffles or something. I have not seen a half marathon that doesn't put out race fuel. Like, there were some people there that have never run a marathon before. There was plenty of them back there behind me. They were like, yeah, it's my first half marathon. We thought blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, good for you. All this stuff. But, I brought my hydration vest, and like I had my spring gels in there. I had my Swedish fish in there. I had some sour Mike and Ike's. I had my salt. I've got all the stuff, right? I mixed scratch in my backpack, in my hydration, in my bladder, in my water. Like, I've got all of the race fuel. I have dialed that in, right? There are some people where this is their first half marathon, or maybe it's their first race longer than a 5K. They had zero big goose egg, zero aid out there on that course. And I thought, I don't know, that's actually dangerous, I think, to run a half marathon with zero aid. And the water was like set on tables on the side of the road. So it was like just packs of water, like you get at Costco, those big packs of Deer Park waters that are like the small water bottles. They were just like packs of water set on tables at the side of the road, and you just stopped and you grabbed a water, which I guess at this point I should probably just be glad that they had water bottles out there. I didn't need it because I had water in my pack, but there were lots of folks that were out there with nothing, like just not a hydration, nothing. And so they depended upon the race to provide race fuel and race aid. Also, didn't see a single first aid station out there. Anyway, let me remind you folks that you are running in a rural part. I hate that stupid word. I hate that word more than any other word in the whole entire universe. I cannot say rural to save my freaking life. Let me say it another way. You are running in the backwoods of North Georgia, right? So I did not see a first aid tent, a first aid stop, a first aid truck, nothing, nada, nowhere. No clue if something were to happen. I guess you're just shit out of luck because they didn't have anything there to help you. Thankfully, I didn't need anything. I did see one lady just plow, like there's some pretty steep downhills. She just plowed it up. She tore her hands up and her knees just covered in blood because you know what? No first aid. I will also, are you getting the gist of this race right now? But at this point, I am still totally 100% stoked because this is the first downhill race I've ever run, and I was so excited. All right, so we get to, coming in to, there were porta pots. I will say there weren't a lot of porta pots. There were porta pots at the start line. There were 2 porta pots maybe halfway down, and then right at 3 miles there was one more porta pot, and then there was like new bathrooms there at the finish line. So you were able to go to the bathroom if you didn't feel like you wanted to run off into the woods of North Georgia. That was another, I guess, pro, but is it really a pro if you're just doing the bare minimum of what's expected? I don't know. So we come in and I'm feeling pretty good. My knees are actually not bothering me. Everybody's like, oh my God, downhill, be careful, your knees are going to kill you. My knees are fine. My quads are like toasted after that run. I thought I had trained adequately. I had not, because what is this, day 1, 2 afterwards, and my legs are still particularly unsure about holding me up as I walk downstairs. But I will say, we finished the race. There were, I don't know how many folks behind me. There was, I don't know, 15, 20 folks still out there. Remember that this is not a huge race. Maybe 500 people total signed up for the whole thing between all 3 races. And we come in and we finish. And I immediately notice, they're announcing awards. And y'all, I get it. I know as a race director, you don't want to be out there all day. But dang, announcing awards before, I don't know, people finish. And I get that you can't wait until, if folks are not finishing before the cutoff, like I get going ahead and doing that. But they didn't even wait for that. The race had a 3-hour cutoff. We finished at 2:40, like just before 2:40. So, and there were still some people, like some older people that were back there with us. And one of them actually won an age group award because she finished second in her age group. And here's the thing. They had already announced all of the age groups and people hadn't finished yet. And that just leaves you feeling kind of crummy. Right? That just, don't love that. Even then, I was like, okay, it's fine. It's fine. We're just going to brush this off. No aid. Didn't matter because we had our aid. No first aid. Didn't matter. We didn't need our first aid. And we didn't need first aid. Shirts are fine. There's things that happen with shirts. There's so many things. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And then I was like, let's go get some barbecue because here's the thing. This was not a cheap race. This race was over $100. So, and they're like, there's going to be a band, there's going to be barbecue, there's going to be beer, there's going to be aid, there's going to be and there's going to be prizes, like raffle prizes and all this stuff. I was like, oh, sweet. We're going to get our $100 worth. We go over there, 0 barbecue left. Now, I heard that the barbecue wasn't super great anyway, but I would have liked the option to have not liked it because there was 0 barbecue. I was like, not just no barbecue, no mac and cheese, no accoutrements, no nothing, no food, no protein, no nothing. You know what I got at the end of that race? I got a banana, I got a bag of chips, and I got a bottle of water. Actually, it wasn't a bottle. It wasn't even a bottle of water. Was it a bottle of water? Yes, I got a bottle of water. That was what finished the race out. And and the ladies who were like, man, I am just dishing all the tea today. The ladies that were handing out the barbecue, I do not know who made them mad. I almost used some bad words and have to check the little box when I upload the podcast that says explicit content contained. I don't know who tinkled in their Cheerios, but they were not happy to be there at all, and they made it known. So I don't know if they were mad that there wasn't enough barbecue for all of the runners, but maybe that's what that was. Anyway, didn't get any of the barbecue. There were no raffle prizes. There was no band. There was a keg of beer sitting on the ground that you had to go and do yourself. But that was it. That's all. That's all we got. I don't really expect a whole lot, but after a half marathon, that is 13.1 freaking miles, y'all. That's a lot to run, and your body goes through, like, I don't know how many of these I've done now, but dang, at You need something to help you recover at the end of that. Remember those folks that I told you about earlier that were running without anything, without any water, without any gels, without any salt, any of that stuff? Well, I hope they had some in their car, because they certainly didn't get any at that finish line. So here's the thing. The shirts, the aid, the first aid, announcing the awards before all of the people come in. The cost, this race was more than $100, which I have no problem paying if you actually get more than a bag of chips at the end of it, or like some music, or I don't know, anything that made it worth running. And the barbecue running out, and it's just all of the things. If it was like one or two of these things, I would have been okay. I would have been like, you know what? Shit happens. Oh, maybe I can bleep that out. You know what? Crap happens. Sometimes things go wrong and you just can't do the things that you said you were going to do. But they didn't. There was a lot of things that they didn't do that they said that they were going to do. They did close the race at 3 hours. So as a back of the packer, 3 hours is the absolute minimum that I would say would be pace inclusive. I'm not going to say this one was pace inclusive though, because they started tearing down the finish line. There were folks, like, there was no food, there was no aid, there was none of that. I just, if I could give a 0, if I had a rating scale, like 0 out of 5 for, pace inclusivity or something like that, this one got a 0, because as a back of the packer, I just can't recommend it, because it's an absolutely beautiful course, but I would just be worried about you doing it because of all of the things like I referenced above, right? I guess probably my biggest pet peeve on this one is just make good on your promise. If you say, okay, I'm charging $100 for this race, but what you're going to get out of it is we're going to have a band, we're going to have barbecue, and we're going to have beer, and we're going to have a finish line vibe, and we're going to have really cool shirts and medals and all this stuff. Okay, shirt was cool, medal was cool, but some people didn't even get a shirt because of the size thing, right? So if you promise like a certain feeling, if you promise like a certain experience, you got to at least try to deliver on that. And I just don't think they did. What it is a beautiful course. The road was closed for the most part, for most of the time. And it was a beautiful course. Now, if you're a front of the packer or even a mid packer and you're finishing in 1:45, 2 hours, something like that, go rock and roll down this hill. You'll probably be bringing your own aid and your own water and your own fuel and all that stuff too. Throw a couple of Band-Aids in there because you're not going to get a first aid kit on the course. Also, I would recommend, like, if you're allergic to anything, bring an EpiPen because you're just not going to get any first aid. Not out there. So just, if you're going to go do it, just be aware. It's a beautiful course, stunning course. But you're going to have to take care of yourself. You know how like old school trail races are still or used to be, where you're going to have to self-aid. You're going to, set up your little tent and put you some potatoes and stuff in it and just go out there and do your thing. You got to treat it like that. You're on your own. And I was just disappointed with that. All right. Well, it was all that and a bag of chips. But I guess you could probably say it was none of that, but I did get a bag of chips. So, and that's all I got. And some people after me got even less than that. I'm sorry for them. And I do hope that they continue running, though, and that they have a better half marathon experience in their future. Don't let this one deter you. Come back. See if you can do better. All right, folks. Do you think I've just been whining this whole time? Like, am I just being a big whiny butt about this race? Maybe other people don't feel like this. Maybe it was just me and my perception of the race. I don't think it was, but it could be. it could be 100% just me being a little whiny person about the race. I don't know. What do you expect if a race, actually, that's a great question. If a race costs you over $100, what do you expect to get out of that race? So leave a comment on the podcast once it's published, and let me know, what do you expect to get from a half marathon that's over $100? And or feel free to tell me I'm just being a big whiny butt. That's fine too. And but while you're doing it, why don't you tag Behind the Bib on Instagram, or shoot me a message, or leave me a comment on one of the carousels. I would actually love to hear your thoughts. Okay, so that's the weekend wrap up. Did the Arbor Day 5K race, super cute, little fun local race, 100% do it again. And the Teardrop Half Marathon in Chatsworth, Georgia. Don't know if I'll be doing that one again. Think that might be a one and done type situation. So, all right. Let's talk about some upcoming races in the Huntsville, North Alabama area. We've got May 10th, Girls on the Run, North Alabama. Their 5K is going to be going on in Huntsville. Also on May 10th, if you're more of the trail runner type, the Redstone 25K on Redstone Arsenal. You need our Arsenal access to get into that race, by the way. May 11th is the 4th annual Whiskey Run. That's out in Madison. And then May 15th is the Harry Williams All-Comers Track Meet. That one is sponsored by Huntsville Track Club. And then I heard about a new one, the Caribbean Carnival, or Carnival, is spelled with a Q. I don't know how to pronounce it in that case. It's the 5K. It is a 5K. It's on May 17th. That's in Huntsville, Alabama. And don't worry, y'all. I'm going to post all of these down into the show notes below. I'll put a link down there so that you can just follow the link and go register for the race or find out more details about it. All right? Also on May 17th coming up is the Rotary Club of Madison Point 5K Couch Potato. That one might be a fun one. That's out in Madison. And then wrapping up May is May 26th, the Cotton Row Run 10K, 5K, and 1 mile fun run walk. Now remember, if you listened on the last episode, if you've never done the Cotton Row 10K, go out and preview that race, because it's one hell of a hill on the way up and a great downhill, the backside of Bankhead on the way down. But if you've never done it, you need to go do it first. All right. So Behind the Bib is going to be setting up at the Fleet Feet Wellness Week coming up next Wednesday. This is the first time Fleet Feet has done a wellness week, and I was very honored to be asked to come and speak on, I think I'm speaking on Wednesday night. Behind the Bib is going to be there, so I would love to see some of you guys there and participating. I'm going to put the link to that event, or that week's events, down in the show notes below as well. Fleet Feet has all kinds of stuff lined up for the week, from all kinds of workouts to like sound body stuff to speakers like me, and so it's all things fitness and running in the North Alabama area. So I would love to see you guys there. All right. I think that's going to be a wrap, folks. Check out Behind the Bib Podcast on Instagram, Behind the Bib on Facebook, Behind the Bib Podcast on YouTube, where you can see this crazy mug on a video, or you can just turn the video off and listen to the sound. Thank you so much for being here. Let's keep showing up for each other, whether you're first, you're last, or somewhere in between. I'll see you next time. We're Behind the Bib. See y'all later. Bye-bye.